just, can you hold? Oh, sorry. Welcome, everyone, to What's Trending live from the Samsung Blogger Lounge in Austin, Texas at South by Southwest. Hey. We have an awesome audience early in the morning eating breakfast tacos, having fun. I'm joined by Bernie Burns, who's co-hosting with me, and, of course, Neil Degrasse Tyson and Andrew Ian behind the new series, Cosmos. Now, I want to encourage you all, we are live. This is all about interactivity. Tweet us your questions using the hashtag Samsung SXSW. Also, Bernie is live in the chat room taking your questions.
Yes, I am. You can tweet at us, and we will ask your questions to Mr. Tyson.
Exactly. But first, before we get into this amazing conversation, let's take a look at Cosmos.
The cosmos is all that is, or ever was, or ever will be. Our contemplations of the cosmos stir us. We know we are approaching the grandest of mysteries.
It's time to get going again.
Now that is badass, isn't it? That is. Once again, the EP, Andrew Ian, and of course, Neil Degrasse Tyson joining us live on What's Trending right now. Why now bring this back, such an iconic series, and tell us how you are reinventing it for this new age?
Well, I think it's always a good time for Cosmos. I was honored to be the co-writer of the original series 35 years ago with Carl Sagan. And 7 years ago, I had the idea of doing a wholly new cosmos, new adventures, stories that have yet to be told to a broad public audience. And I was very lucky to partner with Mitchell Canold, who's here today, my fellow executive producer. And then, of course, I had known Neil for, 20 years. And never thought really seriously of asking anyone else to be the face of the series. I wrote it, produced it, and directed one of the episodes. And I'm very proud of the fact that for the first time in my adult life, on a regular broadcast network, commercial network, Fox, and also National Geographic, we are going to get an hour of the gorgeous, inspiring, thrilling universe revealed by science. And now, because we aspire to be a democracy and we're a society totally based on science and high technology, look around, and yet so few of us understand how science and high technology work. And the question is, are we going to let that information, that power, reside in the hands of a tiny elite few? Or are we going to open it up to everyone?
Everyone. And that's been a big part of your job and what you brought to the world and space, this space.
Well, I'm impressed by the appetite that I have discovered in around the world for learning more about the universe and science in general. And I look at sort of my Twitter stream and people's warm reaction to little tidbits that I just toss out there. And I say, well, how could it be this many people? It must be that there's some hidden hunger. There's some appetite for wonder that is unserved otherwise. And I think Cosmos, therefore, is landing at the right time, at the right place. It's landing on fertile ground.
Did you always feel like you were going to be this voice for a generation of science?
You didn't envision being the poster boy for the science community?
No, I live in New York City where all the major news gathering headquarters are located. And I remember my very first sort of national news appearance. A new planet had just been discovered. And they came, they said, we want to speak to the head of the planetarium. They weren't looking for me, just someone with title.
Yeah.
Right? And so I said, well, sure, I'd be happy to describe how they discovered the planet. And I said the planet is affecting the star around which it orbits, and the star does a little wiggle like this.
Yeah,
and
shake
then,
it.
And then you measure the light, and after that I found out that all they put on the evening news was me just jiggling like this. And
That's when it all got started.
that was my first time I was
highlights.
sound bitten, but then I realized they want to hear something that's kind of interesting, tasty, and a little bit entertaining, but also informative. And so I started parceling my information for the press in ways that they would best receive it. But then they kept coming back. And so then I realized maybe not since Carl Sagan had people invested time and energy thinking about how to communicate, rather than just come to someone who's an expert and the person speaks to you like they're giving a lecture. No, you gotta, this is a communion. This is you have to do some thinking about what's going on in the mind of the person you're communicating with. And so it rose from there. But otherwise, I'm still just happy just to stay home.
Yeah,
really.
what are you like when you're not talking about all this stuff, or do you just always talk about it?
When I'm not talking about it, I'm still talking about it. Yeah.
You know, it is a skill set that doesn't typically overlap with one another. The ability to understand these high-level theoretical concepts, and then also the ability to communicate them to a mass audience. And it's a rare breed that has that. I mean, these important shows like Cosmos, we need those because we need those touchstones for people to see the ways that we're all connected to one another. And Carl Sagan's pale blue dot for me as a young man was a seminal moment for understanding that and kind of getting a sense of my place in the universe.
Great.
So can you guys talk a little bit about Cosmos? How is Cosmos different than other science shows? Like some people who maybe didn't get a chance to see the first run of the show, like can you explain the spaceship of imagination, maybe the cosmic calendar as well?
Get there?
Yeah. Yeah, the ship of the imagination is powered by twin engines of skepticism and wonder. Not one at the expense of the other. No cutting corners on the wonder and no cutting corners on the rigorous science that is the basis for the experience. And Cosmos is different, in my view, in my very biased view, from a lot of other excellent science-based entertainment, in that it's this place where what we know, what science is telling us about the universe, penetrates that wall of denial that we have, that compartmentalizes, the things we know in one place and the things we feel in another. And Cosmos is about breaking down that wall so that when you apprehend for the first time, let's say on the cosmic calendar, where you see the 13.8 billion years of cosmic evolution arrayed before you, so that you can walk from this very moment to the Big Bang and see the galaxies and the stars and the planets. All of these parts of our universe come into being. It's a place called the Halls of Extinction, not a natural history museum, but a memorial to the 5 mass extinction events in Earth history, the times when life came closest to being wiped out completely. And it's a place for us to mourn the broken branches on the tree of life so that extinction becomes something that really means something. And Cosmos is that place where we hope the music, the visuals, the VFX, more than 1,500 spectacular visual effects, enough for 5 movies. When all of those things, the words, I hope, Neil's, charismatic presentation of our scripts, of my scripts, all of that stuff comes together in a transporting odyssey across space and time.
It's beautiful. That was beautifully said. Thank you for giving us that and sharing that with us.
And also consider that many documentaries that some we've even come to know and love, but they don't have quite the staying power in our hearts and minds that the original Cosmos did, or that the new Cosmos we think will have. Imagine what you might do. You park a camera on a tripod and interview some talking heads who are experts, and then you stitch that together, and then you present your documentary. And so you heard how different this is from what a traditional documentary would be. In fact, I don't even think documentary is the right word. I don't know what word. We have to invent a word.
We don't have a word yet.
We'll invent a word for it.
It's a visual experience,
an experience,
psychological, visual.
one that influences you intellectually, physically, emotionally, and maybe even a little bit spiritually.
Was it a bit intimidating to jump into such an iconic, brand like this?
Yeah, you'd think so, but for me it wasn't, because I never viewed myself as stepping into Carl Sagan's shoes, because I can't be. If I try to be Carl Sagan, I can get the billions. I practice that. We all practice the billions. But if I tried to be him, I would just fail, because he's Carl Sagan. But I can be a really good version of me. You see, and so and I can just do that, and you fold that together with the kind of soaring, uplifting storytelling, and so now this is the continuation. And if there's a third Cosmos down the line, somebody else will then bring that. And it would be my hope that they're not trying to be me. They're going to be some other expression of what the world needs at that time and in that moment.
Let's go into the chat room and ask some questions.
Sure. Well, first of all, we want to know, how much has our understanding of astronomy and the universe changed since Carl Sagan's original Cosmos series? What are the biggest leaps forward? What are the biggest leaps forward we've had since 1980, when the show was originally produced?
There's a bunch. So, beginning 1995, we began discovering exoplanets. So now that list is, after a recent announcement a couple of weeks ago, is now rising through 1,000 planets orbiting stars that are not our sun. And that's A. B, the discovery of the Higgs boson, particle that hands mass to other particles. That's the particle you want to be if you're going to be a particle.
Right.
That's a powerful particle. Right?
It's an A-list particle.
It's an A-list particle, totally A-list. Another thing, our concept of our place in space and time has been broadened, because the idea of the multiverse is gaining treads in the physics and astronomy community. And so, in fact, we go there in the opening show, in our zoom out from Earth. In an earlier time, we would have just sort of ended at the large-scale structure of the universe, but now we can say we might be just one bubble among an infinite number of bubbles in a multiverse. And so perspectives change. Let me just make it clear. There are scientific discoveries over this time, including, these are only physics and astrophysics, but there's also, in biology, there's an entire branch of the tree of life that we can think of as thriving under conditions that would kill us. All right, so this idea of life needs the warm pond, 72 degrees room temperature. There is life that is loving being frozen or being boiled in acid, in high radiation, high pressure, high temp. And you scratch your head and said, why would life need to be able to survive this? And then you wonder, some of these resemble the conditions in space. Hey, maybe life started on another planet and then moved through space, and the ones that made it are the ones resistant to all of these forces that would otherwise kill us. So there are whole perspectives that have arisen over that time. And for Cosmos, what we pick are the ideas and discoveries that can fold back in to the storytelling of who and what we are in space and time.
Well, I hate to bring us down from that, but I was really compelled to read this question. This comes from Gavin Free from the UK.
Yeah.
He wants to know, if you had a long enough fishing line, could you fish from the International Space Station into one of the oceans?
Okay, so the line would have to be, 230 miles long, right?
Okay.
So you'd lower it down, and then the bait would go into the ocean. That's fine. We got that. But now...
Have to be robust bait. to make
Okay,
sense.
yeah, have to be... Okay, but the space station is moving 18,000 miles an hour sideways. So the bait would then be dragged through the ocean at 18,000 miles an hour. So the fish, I don't think, would catch up with that, all right?
Right.
So you could
Very
fish,
fast
you wouldn't
bait.
catch anything, is my point. What he might be thinking is, there's the concept of a space elevator, where there's a distance that you can orbit Earth from which your orbital speed matches the rotation speed of the Earth exactly. Because the space station is low enough to orbit, it is much faster than the Earth. It'll orbit the Earth once every 90 minutes. A little higher, it takes 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours. There is a distance where it takes 24 hours to orbit the Earth, which means you hover over the same spot. Now you're talking fishing, okay? But now your line has to be much longer than it would have been for the space. It have to be 23,000 miles long. And you run into a problem because the wire, your fishing line, has to be strong enough to hold up its own weight. And you have to ask, what does 23,000 miles of fishing line weigh?
Even at the thinnest gauge. Yeah.
Let's remember that the space elevator itself has to be about that
getting
long
into this.
in order to get you close to the Earth.
Oh, right, exactly. So you got up to the, so this concept, it's a geosynchronous orbit, where we put all of our communication satellites. And so the space elevator, the idea is you can just take an elevator and get into space without requiring engines.
Exactly.
So there's a friend of mine who composed space elevator music. You see, elevator
I wanna
music.
hear that.
It's very
Very long.
Dun, 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 dun. Someone asked also in the chat room, can you lasso on the moon?
Oh, can you do what on that?
Lasso.
Oh yeah, sure. But what would you be lassoing? I don't know. There's no.
We're going to go to someone in the audience. We do have a question.
Yeah.
What's your name and where are you from? And what's your question?
So you're actually a really huge inspiration for me. I literally grew up in the Bronx, right around the corner from
Bronx
where you
in the
live.
house.
Bronx in the house. Not only that, but we had the same elementary school history teacher.
I didn't. In elementary school, I just had one teacher. I mean, each grade. I don't know. What do you mean?
Mrs. Kreinler.
Miss Kreinler.
Yeah.
Yes, I did have.
She
Mrs.
was my
Kreinler.
history teacher in elementary school.
Okay, no, she just taught us everything.
So-
Okay, so.
Yeah, no, we switched it up in the 80s.
Okay, so Mrs.
but-
Kreinler, I have to say,
Yeah.
Mrs. Kreinler saw my social energy in school and knew that I was reading all these books on the universe and alerted me of advanced classes I could take at the Hayden Planetarium. And that became a way for me to not only exploit my social energy that was otherwise disturbing the class, but to take this interest that she saw. Not all teachers will find your interest outside of the classroom. Right? Most don't even know. She knew it and figured that out and sent me further on my path. So that's a teacher doing good work.
There you go. All right, what is your question?
Continue.
She
I
called,
interrupted him.
No,
No, it's
but
cool.
It is important.
she called me Steve Jobs Jr. So, but
She has a good track record. So.
Go with it.
But my question, so growing up in the 80s, space was incredibly exciting. We had the space shuttle, and now that's gone. What do you think our relationship with space is going to be as a culture for the next generation?
It's a great question.
Yeah, it's not clear who's going to lead this because America, we've been a little slower on the uptake here, and other countries are not. They're recognizing the value of investments and their future in space. So I kind of like the idea of turning space into our backyard, where there's Earth and then there's space. And you might go to an asteroid to get resources. You might, there are all manner of reasons why you might need and want to go into space, but you need a suite of launch vehicles to do this, and that's not our mindset right now. The mindset is still very Earth-focused. But think of all the wars fought over the scarcity of resources. Just think about that. And then you look at all the resources that are just abundant in space. Not only energy, but minerals and all these things. And so I wonder sometimes whether turning space into our backyard will remove most of the reasons why anyone has ever fought wars. And so it may be that here we are thinking that you have to look down to solve your problems, when in fact the greatest solutions to your problems come from looking up.
Love it.
Thank you.
What do you think about a lot of these private companies now getting into the space business?
I think there's some over projecting of what their role is in this. People are saying, what, do we need NASA anymore now that we have private space leading a front? Private space will not lead a frontier, period. They can't. They just can't. I'm not because I don't want them to, it's just that they can't. Space is still expensive, it's dangerous, and it has unquantified risks. So here I am, I'm saying I want to be the first to put people on Mars. Who's with me? I got everybody. Okay, so then the investors show up, and they ask me questions. How much will it cost? I don't know, but a lot. Is it dangerous? Yeah, people will probably die. What is the return on the investment? I have no idea yet. You can't establish a capital market valuation of going into space first. You can't. So something else has to do that. Governments do these kinds of things first. The first Europeans to the New World were not the Dutch East India Trading Company. It was Columbus, paid by Spain, with whole other objectives for accomplishing this. And Columbus draws the maps and finds out where the trade winds are, and where the hostiles are, and where the friendlies are. Then the trade markets begin. That's the role of private enterprise. And that's the role that SpaceX played recently. They took cargo back and forth to the space station.
Yeah.
Well, NASA's been doing that for the past 30 years. I'm amazed how they could carry cargo, and the press says the beginning of a new era where private industry leads space. No, they carried cargo to the space station. All right, let's be real about what's actually happening versus what is required to advance a frontier.
Yeah, I just like to add something to that. I agree with you so vehemently. I guess you knew that. But especially because, the lead times for space missions are so extraordinary. And you have to think long term in order to really get anything out of exploration. And that is almost antithetical to the idea of the quarter and the balance sheet.
Well, Elon Musk has said that he's thinking long term, but still, yes.
But what is he thinking about? He's thinking about rich people getting cheap thrills by going into space, really low space, in order to say to their friends that they've done something that very few of us have done, when it used to be that it was a kind of meritocracy of people actually getting to have these experiences because they were doing it on behalf of all of us. So for me, that's a great leap forward. Backwards, I mean.
We're going to go to a question from the audience.
My name is Russ, locally here from Austin. I went to the Hayden Planetarium for the first time in January. Absolutely loved it. I saw
in New York City.
Yes, that's the one. And saw the Dark Universe presentation. Incredible. There, in particular, one phenomenon that you discussed was the way that light is perceived from a position of the observer traveling away from the person, always in the sense that they are at the center of that realm of perception. I thought that was amazing because it kind of, to me, alluded that we as a person are also kind of the center of our own perceivable universe. I was wondering if you could explain that scientifically and what you think that means mentally.
Yeah, so what you're referring to is the fact that here in our galaxy, we look around the universe and we see the expansion of the universe, and it looks like we're at the center. Because everybody's moving away from us. And then however, what I think we did very effectively in that show is move you to another location in the universe, and you will see that the very same phenomena observed here looks to other places as though they're at the center of the universe. And this is what happens when the entire grid is expanding. And so a weak but still illuminating analogy to this is when you're at sea You are the exact center of your own horizon. You are at the center. It's the same distance to the horizon in every direction. Now you slide over 20 miles to the left. You are once again at the exact center of your own horizon. But you're not saying I'm in the center of the ocean. You know better than that because you can move to a new place. We don't have that luxury to just hop to another galaxy to show this. So we look at all the data and invert what that is doing and arrive at this conclusion that everybody looks like they are the center of their own universe.
Thank you. We're
Yeah,
going to go into the chat room
I
also.
love that. Those moments where he connects with something
Yeah.
and it gives him perspective on his place in the universe. I got to point out, we're shooting this in Austin, Texas, and I'm a native of Austin. Austin is the largest city in the nation that does not have a planetarium.
Without a planetarium.
Yeah.
You all should be embarrassed by that. That's all I'm saying.
Dubious distinction.
Where's the Kickstarter campaign
And
for that?
he went to New York to go to a planetarium. He's an Austin native as well to have that experience.
So let's go back in the chat room. I know this is going to be coming to an end soon, but we still have so many questions.
Sure. They want to know what are some of your favorite outer space movies, and you as well, that maybe more realistically present the way that everything works.
And why did you hate gravity
Everything
so
works
much?
in gloves.
Let's get to the point.
I avoided the gravity question when you were talking about geosynchronous orbits.
Right.
And,
So I have two movies. One of my favorites is Deep Impact, which asteroid takes out the Earth because it gets the physics right. You know, most of the Earth is water, so if you're going to get hit, it's probably going to hit the water. So their comet hit the water, and you still get to destroy cities. But you do it with a tsunami. Right. Another one of my favorites is Contact. This woman had something to do with. I didn't mean to poke your face out here. Attention was paid to the physics, and more importantly, at least for me, is they thought a lot about the relationship between the discovery that there's intelligent life out there and the cultural response to it. You can't just do one without thinking about the other, and it was brilliant sensitivity or awareness to how people react to information. And that juxtaposition in that film, for me, was, that's how that would, yep. You'd have crazies rising up, you'd have cults, there it is. And it's both scary and refreshing that you would get that right.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My favorite space movie is an obvious choice. It's 2001. And I love that, first of all, because it is more futuristic than anything we've ever made since. And because it's timeless. And because there's that one moment where you have that mothership and the probe or whatever, and they are seeking to dock in space. And you realize that it's a meditation on life in the universe and the dilemma, the existential dilemma of living in a place in which we're quarantined on our planet until we grow up. And then we get to venture forth and begin to just scratch the surface of the mysteries. I love that movie, and I think it just, every time I see it, I love it because it has a vision of the future which in some ways is much more hopeful than any recent vision that we've had in the last decade since. Every vision of the future that we do have is so dystopic and ruined and stifling and dirty.
Apocalyptic.
And apocalyptic. And that's
Hal did kill everybody at the end of that.
Well, they were just
So I just want to say.
I need to ask you though, Neil, why did you feel you had to speak out about gravity? Did you feel that responsibility?
Oh, I don't speak out about, a movie has to earn my attention in that regard. The movie got so much else right. I'm thinking, okay, I will now note the couple of things. It was 10 tweets, that's all it was. And people went bat crazy the next morning. I wake up, Neil, did you see that it was on the Today Show, and it was on and Brian Williams, and it was on the Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live talking about my damn tweets. It was just, I noticed a few things they got wrong. That's all. But I don't do this for Star Wars. I don't say, here's the physics that Star Wars got wrong. There's certain movies that have not earned it because they made no attempt to get it right in the first place. So for me, it's oddly perhaps, it's the highest compliment I can give a movie to talk about it in that way. Because everything else was, the most right thing they got was the satellite catastrophic destruction scenario. That's a true thing that can happen. If you tomahawk out a satellite in low Earth orbit and make it into 10 pieces, just so the math comes out clean for this example, 10 pieces, and each one of those pieces hits another satellite, turns them into 10 pieces, and that goes on and on, and you go from 10 to 100 to 1,000, you rapidly destroy 100% of the satellites in orbit, and that's what they portrayed in that movie. I don't want to give it away to anybody, but and so that was good. That was good. I'm with that. But I still think her hair should have stood up in zero G. You've seen astronauts. You've seen images of astronauts. That's the first thing you notice. The hair is all puffy, right? And standing up on end. But they didn't do that. Too much mousse, or it was a wig. I don't know. But here's, can I just go? There's liberties they took that I'll give them this. Mark Twain once said, "First get your facts straight, then distort them at your leisure." Okay? So here's an example. She's tearing up, and then one of the tears comes out and floats in front of her. And then the camera zooms in, and you see a reflection of the inner cabin on the tear. This is beautiful and poignant. Okay, it turns out a tear will not do, they've done this experiment. The surface tension of the tear will have it just stick to your cheek, all right? You ever cried and the tear comes under your chin and goes horizontal under your chin? It doesn't just drip out of your eyes like in cartoons where tears just fly out. So, but they wanted this poignancy, so you give them that. Go on, let the tear come out. I'm okay with that.
Love it. We're going to go to an audience question.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name is Meredith. I live here in Austin, but I'm from California, and I really loved what you said about the geopolitical implications of space exploration, all the resources that are out there, because I studied Earth and planetary science at Berkeley, and we talked about that stuff all the time, so it's great to hear it from you. But my question is, I guess the theory of multiverses aside, what do you think the shape of the universe is? And if you could change it to any other shape that you wanted, what would it be?
Whoa.
You have free reign here.
Thank you for that.
Blank canvas.
You know, I'm cool with spheres. Our horizon in the universe is the three-dimensional analog to your horizon at sea. Your horizon at sea is a circle. In three-dimensional space, our horizon is a perfect sphere. Now, that's the horizon to the observable universe. Beyond that sphere, the universe has not been around long enough for light to have reached us yet. Come back in 1 billion years, that sphere is 1 billion years bigger. Now, there's an extra little spherical shell of data that now reaches us, and your observable universe has grown. So the question is, how big is the universe outside of our observable universe? That's unknown. Just to be simple, we just say maybe it's infinite and let's get on with lunch, you know? Because we don't, what are you going to say, twice as big? Well, what argument do you have for it? We don't have any reason to think anything. So, but here's what would be cool. If this side of the universe, all right, all of a sudden, no more galaxies show up as our horizon expands, but other galaxies show up over here. All right, what that would mean is the evidence for the Big Bang would go away here. Because the Big Bang, you're looking so far back in time, you are seeing stuff getting born. And if the universe is infinite, you will always be seeing something getting born. Because that's the light that's just now reaching you. But if you get to the edge of that universe, there, and your horizon washes over that, and there's nothing there, you will lose your cosmology in this direction on the sky. And in fact, if our horizon extends beyond all objects, then no longer is there light coming to us from the Big Bang. And the concept of cosmology will go away. And if a civilization arose under those conditions, they would have no evidence of a Big Bang. Which leaves me wondering, is there some page torn from the history of the universe that we do not experience because of some major fact such as that? Leaving us to try to describe the elephant, but not stepping back and seeing the whole picture. But in any case, I'm cool with spheres. Otherwise, I don't know what other shape. But dodecahedron, how about that, right? Just to get some, yeah.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, Andrew, and thank you so much for being here. We so appreciate it. we're going to be giving you a Samsung Galaxy Camera 2.
Yeah, I'm loving it.
Explore the galaxy with this. We appreciate it. Check out, of course, Cosmos. Follow him on Twitter with his nuggets of wisdom, many nuggets.
Brain droppings, really.
Yeah. Watch Cosmos. Tell your friends. It's very important to support shows like this. Couldn't have been easy to make this show in this day and age. We appreciate your efforts. Can't wait to see it.
Yes.
Thanks,
And
guys.
Bernie
Thank
Burns,
you.
thank you so much. And of course, we'll be back live right here, youtube.com/What's Trending. This entire conversation is staying up, so you can share it with your friends. Tune in. We have neighbor Zac Efron, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, and Dave Franco coming up. So much more action from the Samsung Blogger Lounge at South by Southwest. We love you. We all love you. Thank you so much. You rock. Thank you. Here you go.